Okay, guys, let's talk about something really interesting. About bloodlines that most people never think about. But I do. What if the story of the Anunnaki, the fallen angels, and the Garden of Eden are actually describing the same genetic event? Here is part 1 of the Rh negative bloodline and how it correlates to the fallen angels and the Anunnaki. In ancient astronaut theories, the Anunnaki came to Earth and began experimenting with human DNA. But here's where it gets interesting. The earliest pure human bloodlines, according to this theory, were the Rh negative bloodlines. A negative, B negative, and AB negative. These lines were the first pure human bloodlines on Earth. Later on, genetic modification occurred, where outside beings allegedly mixed human DNA with primate genetics. That's where the rhesus factor comes in. The Rh protein in positive blood is named after the rhesus monkey, which is why some theorists believe that Rh positive blood could be the result of an ancient genetic alteration, creation of the positive bloodlines. So the theory goes like this. The Anunnaki modified humans to create a more comfortable labor force. Those altered genetics created the Rh positive blood types, which now make up the majority of the population today. Some ancient texts can say that humans were created to mine gold and other metals for the gods. If this sounds familiar, it's because it mirrors the story of the Watchers or fallen angels in the Book of Enoch. Now here's where things get even deeper. Some researchers believe that the story of Eve and the serpent is actually describing a different lineage entirely. In that interpretation, the serpent wasn't a snake, it was a fallen celestial being. When Eve was seduced by this being, it produced a hybrid bloodline. And that bloodline is sometimes associated with O negative blood, which some people call the blood of the sky gods. This theory also tries to explain the story of Cain and Abel. Abel represents the original human line. Cain represents the hybrid line, which is why some interpretations say that Cain carried the blood of the gods, and why that conflict between the bloodlines show up in ancient myths across cultures. Now, whether you take this literally, symbolically, or somewhere in between, it's fascinating how the same story keeps appearing across Sumerian texts, the Bible, the Book of Enoch, and ancient mythologies. It's different cultures, but the same theme of gods mixing with humans. So the real question is, were these stories or just myths? Or were they ancient people that were trying to explain genetic events that they didn't fully understand? All right, so here is a breakdown of how genetic tinkering happened according to these texts. You have the source, divine creator, and you have the two angelic lines. One being the fallen angels, which are the Watchers, and then the seraphim were the ones who created the A negative, B negative, and AB negative. Again, they created the pre-Watcher Rh negative humans. Now, if we look at the Orphim, the Watchers and the Anunnaki did the genetic tinkering, which caused the Rh positive human slave race. Here's another breakdown that I created. So we have Source and the Creator, celestial beings, sky gods, Anunnaki, Watchers, and Elohim. Genetic interactions with humans. Original human bloodlines, which were the Rh negative blood types. A negative is the priest lineage. B negative is the nomad lineage. And AB negative is a rare hybrid of the two. So you got A negative, who was Adam, B negative, who was Eve, and AB negative, which was Seth. Genetic modification event happened, which, and who else came from the AB negative lineage? Yeshua. So the genetic modification event happened, which introduced the Rh protein, or the rhesus factor, in the blood. The Rh positive bloodline was created by the genetic tinkering. Now, this is a separate situation in itself. Okay, we have to go to the beginning of Adam and Eve in the garden. Eve was in the garden and was beguiled by a serpent. Beguiled in Hebrew text means seduced. And if we think about this situation and the serpent also being the fallen angels, the fallen angel, or, one of the sky gods, seduced Eve and created the O negative bloodline, which is where we get Cain's bloodline. Hence the story of the Cain narrative in certain esoteric interpretations. We have to remember the story of Cain and Abel. Well, hold on, let me back up real quick. So we have to understand that the sin that happened in the garden was that Eve was not enticed by an apple, but this fallen angel seduced her. So now back to Cain and Abel. Cain killed Abel. Why? Because the sin was created in the garden. She slept with a fallen angel, an O negative, which is how that lineage has continued. And when you mess with God's creation, you have these Nephilim beings, half human and half alien. Every video I gotta say this. No one is better than the next person. I don't care what your lineage is. I don't care what your race is. And I don't really care about your negative opinion. If you would like to have a healthy discussion and debate about this, I would absolutely love it. Let's keep the hate out, guys. I also want to make it abundantly clear that anyone can be saved through Christ consciousness alone. Like, I'm gonna fall for more?